Hello everyone and welcome to Sportified Minds, a series of video interviews with India's leading sportspersons on the role of physical and mental conditioning in sporting success. I am Raisah Ila Panda, a sports enthusiast, founder of Strive, which is a sports for development network, and a student at Vasant Valley School. Through my interviews of some of India's most determined minds, current and former sportspersons who have competed at the Olympics, Commonwealth Games, and Asian Games, I shall present the secrets of their success, which will be an inspiration to all of us. My guest today is one of India's enduring sporting icons, a legend in the world of tennis, Padma Bhushan recipient, Khel Ratna awardee, 7-time Olympian who won a rare individual medal, and not to mention 18 Grand Slam titles. Yes, I'm talking about Leander Paes. Welcome, Mr. Paes. It's truly an honor to have the marathon man of tennis join me on my show.
Hi, Raisah. It's a real pleasure to be on the show with you and wishing you all the luck in every endeavor that you have, because for a 17-year-old to have this amount of responsibility and this amount of care to give back to the community is something that's very rare. I'm really, really proud of you.
Thank you. So I'm going to go straight into the questions. You are the first Indian and only tennis player to compete in 7 consecutive Olympics. How does that make you feel?
I'm a very proud Indian. I believe that coming from a country of 1.3 billion people, to be able to represent our people and represent our flag is the epitome of what an athlete can have in their career. And to not only get to emulate my father in making the Olympics, but also to emulate him and winning an Olympic medal, where we are the only father-son combination in Southeast Asia to win 2 medals in the same family, is a huge responsibility I had as a young boy. So now that I've done that, I can kind of, shed off that responsibility and rest up a little bit, because the pressure was a lot.
So a career spanning over 3 decades in a physically demanding sport like tennis is exceptional. What was your fitness regimen like when you started out, and how has it changed?
So when I was a young boy in school in Kolkata, Raisah, I played every single sport, just like yourself, where you were the vice captain for school. I captained my school in football, hockey, cricket, swimming, track and field, and basketball. And both the sports that we both love, which is soccer and basketball, were sports that taught me all-rounded fitness. The training that went to that was, as I've just explained, the mental training of that, also setting up the environment to be able to play team sports as well as individual sports is important. But the physical fitness that it takes is tremendous. From the age of 5, my parents have been nurturing me with coaches and trainers and physios and mental trainers and psychologists and fitness trainers to really hone my skills as a professional athlete. And I think that is one of the aspects that was lacking in the 80s and 90s in India, is the physical prowess and the mental prowess that it takes to be a champion in sport. And that's one of the reasons I'm really excited about your journey in going into the psychology and the emotional fitness and the mental fitness of the society.
So just as you mentioned right now, you'd also mentioned in an interview some time ago that you refer to physical, technical, and emotional fitness being necessary for a sports person to succeed. Which do you
I missed that last bit, I'm sorry.
I was saying, which do you rank the highest?
Ooh, that's a tough question. I think emotional fitness is very, very important. Just as a human being, to be able to know that our parents love us, to be able to give love and care and security to the people around us, the people we care for. I think to be able to have a certain amount of self-worth is very important. I've got a 14-year-old daughter as well, and as a single parent, it's very important to make sure that my daughter feels that emotional security. I'm very blessed with Ayana because she also wants to be a tennis champion. She wants to go to the Olympics and wants to be a professional athlete. But the journey for that is really long. The most important thing is, regardless of whether we achieve greatness or don't, is emotionally we have to feel really good about ourselves. And that's the important part. So I think emotional fitness is number 1 on the priority there. Number 2 would be mental fitness. Why I say that is because physical fitness is something you can acquire. Skills is something you can acquire. I have a 10,000 hours, 3 million repetition rule that builds muscle memory and skills. But as far as the mental fitness of it all, it's really important that the brain comprehends what your goals are and what you have to do along the hard yards to achieve those goals, and then how to even start the goals. How do you set up your goals? I think the mental aptitude to grasp around what you're trying to achieve in life and then set a very, very systematical path so that you do achieve it is very important. So mental fitness would be number two, and then the physical fitness and the skills would be after that.
Okay. You are a proponent of mental visualization as part of your training to condition the mind. Why and how do you follow this approach?
So I had a coach, Dave O'Meara, when I was about 12 years old. I left home at the age of 12 on the 12th of May 1986, and I'd asked my father to find the best tennis academy possible and to give me 1 year, 52 weeks to let me experience what tennis was all about. And after 52 weeks, I would let him know if I could do it in tennis. So hence, I went to Chennai, which was then known as Madras, and they had international coaches there, and Dave O'Meara was my coach. He actually would do long distance running on the Marina Beach, 7 kilometers on the sand, 4 times a week. And that's what built the strength in the legs, in the calves, in the Achilles, in the foot, in the hamstrings, the quads, and also the lung capacity. But also that long distance running built a tough mind for endurance. And 3 times a week, we would do visualization. So he would put us into situations where we had to close our eyes, we all lie down, and we had to prepare into the visualization, which is a technical process. But every second day, we visualized a different issue. It could be a situation in life. It could be a situation on a tennis court. It could be a situation in a match. And he would take us into that situation and devise 3 or 4 different mechanisms on how we could find a solution. So he taught us one that was not just only one way to find a solution. He tried to flex our mental aptitude, our mental muscle, shall we call it, and basically find multiple different ways on how we could solve the same problem. And that's one of the greatest things that I feel visualization does, is one, it expands the brain to realize that there's not only one blueprint that is correct. It also allows us to learn from a child and from a wise old person just the same, to have multiple different ways to solve an issue.
You have said, and I quote, the anxiety of competition must be lulled by the comfort of routine and ritual. How do you prepare for a tournament or a high profile match?
I think a lot of people get nervous a lot. I think a lot of people, when they look at the big stage and they look at getting onto the big stage, they get nervous of the crowd, they get nervous of the judgment, they get nervous of performance. And in that, as people get nervous of a lot of things, I think it's very important to be able to handle yourself. It's very important to be able to know your strengths and weaknesses and just focus on that. To me, I find that the mental game is so important to achieve success. And then when you achieve success once, is to be able to remember exactly what you did as a footprint, to be able to replicate that multiple times over.
I'm aware that you believe that the difference between participating and winning is an inherent capability. Do you believe champions are born or that they can also be made?
You blow me away with your maturity sometimes, right? So you're 17 years old and you ask me questions that a professional psychologist or sports psychologist would ask me. It's a big debate in our house whether champions are made or whether champions are born with. And it's funny that my parents, my dad in particular, he's a sports medicine doctor. He is one of the greatest brains in sport that I know across the world. And it's not just that I'm being biased because he's my papa, but because of the fact that he's not only an Olympic champion in 72 in Munich in field hockey, but also he's a sports medicine doctor. Dad is, for the last 21 years, has been working with not just myself to build my career, but he's worked with about 10 million athletes in multiple sports like cricket. He was working with the Asian Cricket Council and the BCCI. He was working with the FIFA and the Indian Football Federation. He's been working with tennis and golf and hockey and track and field and through sports programs and schools. He's worked with these 10 million athletes, and the kind of knowledge that he has bringing to a dining table, that whenever we're having breakfast or dinner and we're having discussions about how I can actually create an environment for my daughter to be a champion. Now, whether she achieves it or not is a separate issue. That's karma, in my belief. But the hard yards that it takes, especially from a country like India, is very, very essential to set the environment right for them. One is for the safety and security of the human being. Two is that for the nurturing of the body, mind, and soul of the athlete. And three is on getting the professional guidance on what to do. I feel like, in my opinion, certain amount of genetics in terms of DNA is inherited. Quick twitch fibers, the mentality of a champion, the hunger of a champion. Those are things that are generally inherited or generally can be seen very young. But I think in terms of hard work, I think in terms of systematic planning, I think in terms of technique, I think in terms of muscle memory, those things can be learned. Those things can be taught. So I think it's a balance, to answer your question. I've given you a long answer here because I really feel it's balanced. Some things are inherited as a God-given talent or genetics from our parents, and other things are skills we have to learn, Raisah. And I think that as kids or as students of life, that we always have to better ourselves. Every single day we wake up, we must wake up with a purpose to better ourselves.
So you have said you're a student of life and a student of the game. What both taught you?
One is being a student of life. I know that I have 365 days of the year to learn 365 things. It's like building a house or building an empire. Every day you build one brick. And at the end of the year or end of the quarter, you actually see how your house and your foundations are coming together. So I think there has to be a very systematic approach to becoming a champion in any walk of life. But I also think that just as a human being, to master the skills of what you're trying to do, whether you're trying to be an astronaut or whether you're trying to be a computer engineer or whether you're trying to be a sports psychologist or a sports athlete, I think that to master your craft is very important. And, as much as I could sit here and give you, we could be here literally for the next 1 year talking about different things that I've learned through my career and my life. The most important thing I feel as in psychology of being a champion is to find happiness in the lonely hours that it takes to becoming a champion. I think to become a champion, whether it's in a team or whether it's in an individual capacity, in anything that you do, you have to master your skill. And to master your skill, there are many hours in the day that you are alone trying to master that skill, learning from different techniques. Nowadays, we have an amazing amount of knowledge on the net itself. Nowadays, we have an amazing amount of skill sets that we can learn from apps like YouTube and things. So hence, to be able to spend that lonely time to search for your knowledge and then to practice your knowledge, to find happiness in that, I think is a real mark of a champion. And it doesn't come easy to people. Normally people get tired. Normally people want to go out and party. Normally people want to go out and hang out with their friends, or they want to go drinking, or they want to, kind of just sleep in late. They want to do things that don't necessarily allow them to master their craft. I think that the loneliness of a champion is something that is the most underestimated mental aptitude that people don't get. They only see the magic of staying in 5-star hotels or traveling business class or playing in stadiums that have 100,000 people chanting your name, But they don't see the hard yards that it takes to actually get there, to achieve that position.
I believe Martina Navratilova proposed to you. Of course, she was talking about a mixed doubles partnership. How did it feel?
Man, Martina Navratilova is one of the greatest athletes of all time. I'm so blessed to have both the Martinas as really, really close friends of mine. They're my two confidants, Martina Hingis and Navratilova. And Navratilova has taught me so much about longevity as an athlete in terms of diet, in terms of training methodology, in terms of sports recovery, in terms of, like simple things that you can do in your day-to-day lifestyle that are more preventive in terms of injury prevention, in terms of being able to enhance your body, mind, and soul to achieve greatness continuously as a habit. I think it's one thing to win one Grand Slam. I think it's one thing to play in one Olympics. I think it's another thing to actually win an Olympic medal or win a Grand Slam. But I think there's a level of champions that actually produce excellence at a very high level continuously over 20, 30 years. And that's something that Navratilova has taught me really well.
So then you've talked about having a blessed career, and your achievements are too many for me to list without running out of time. What keeps you being humble despite being a legend in tennis and the sporting world at large?
I think that after having achieved all this the accolades in tennis, whether it's the Grand Slams or 18 of them, or whether it's getting to 36 Grand Slam finals or playing in 7 Olympics and achieving what one has, I think the most important thing that I tried to do in my career was to prove to Indians that we could be world beaters in the field of sport, that we could win an Olympic medal in singles, that we could actually be number one in the world at something. And before I got there, there weren't any champions in India in the field of sport as number one in the world. I felt that in India we are more cerebral as a community. I think we're more intellectual as a community, and in that, I feel it's really important to have a very good, healthy lifestyle. I think that if through my example, after having achieved what I have, my journey is to really take sports fitness, sports knowledge, sports education into the community, not just for professional athletes, but also for amateur athletes and also for the community. And this is what I love what you do at Strive, where you give underprivileged children, or you give young children such a great opportunity. One is I love the name Raisah, Strive. It means so much. And two is that you're giving people in the community who don't necessarily have an opportunity a chance to be the best they can be. And I think that if we take our intellectual community as Indians and we give them a physicality, we give them emotional health, mental health, and physical health, I think our whole country could be a whole lot better for it.
While most sports persons have a signature style, you've gone on record to say that you adopted a different style depending upon the opponent. Does this versatility also require mental agility?
It requires a lot of mental agility. Just in your vocabulary, it's really cool that you know these phrases and you know these words. It shows the training that you've done, in your sports psych that you're so interested in. I'm really interested to see how you go out with your undergrad and your postgrad and where your life takes you, because I think you yourself, Raisah, can make a big difference in the community. I think as a young Indian girl growing into sports psychology or into psychology as a whole, you're a huge example for the rest of the community. And for me, that's something that I've tried to do, is to use my example on the way I live my life, on the way I practice my craft, on the way that I represent my country, speaks for itself. So just as that, even when I go on the court, I am a thorough gentleman. I play within the rules, but I'm a very fierce competitor. And a lot of that is about knowing your own strengths and weaknesses, as well as knowing your opponent's strengths and weaknesses, and then matching up my strengths against my opponent's weakness. I find that's the fastest and easiest way to victory.
First of all, thank you. I mean, it means a lot for you to say something like that. And second of all, how has your style of play evolved over the years?
I grew up not a very talented tennis player. One is that in tennis, the average height for a tennis player in the 80s used to be 6'1". The average height for a tennis player today is 6'5". Me, on a good day, I'm 5'10". So I don't possess a huge serve, or my trajectory of shots come from a lower trajectory. So I always have to hit up. But the God-given gifts that I've been born with, which is my quick twitch fiber, my speed of foot, my speed of hand, my speed of eyes, that I pick up things much faster. Only this year have I started having to wear glasses, but my vision is beyond 20/20, which has been really cool. So hence, picking up on things quick and really matching my strengths against my opponent's weaknesses, I'm able to strategize my play to cut the opponent's time short, to give them less time to recover on the court physically, to give them less time to recover mentally, and to give them less time to recover with their breath. So hence, I play very fast points, as in serve and volley tennis. I play very aggressive tennis when I first started out playing. But then over the years, Raisah, over my 30 years of my career, the surfaces have become slower. Tennis balls have become bigger, so hence a lot slower. As much as the equipment has evolved so much in terms of power, I feel that the skills of the tennis player have been minimized because of the slow surface, the slow conditions of the play, as well as the equipment. So hence, I've had to to become bigger, stronger physically, to be able to compete against the taller, stronger Germans or Swedish players or Australians who are physically real brutes, or American, really tough athletes. I've also had to adapt myself mentally to play against the Serbians or the Russians who have a different sense of hunger when they come out there, because for them, sport is a way of life to better their lives and their families' lives. So they have a deep burning desire, than most athletes or most people have in the world. So hence, I think that both mentally and physically, um, I've had to continue adapting myself as an athlete or a student of my craft to keep getting better every day. And I think that for me, more than winning $1 million, more than winning Grand Slams, to actually keep bettering myself as a human being has really been the passion that I've lived my life by.
I mean, I'm 5'10" too. Maybe you should teach me how to become a tennis champion.
Listen, at 5'10", you're doing great, huh? I mean, you're doing really super. I know in your long jumps, you've done really well in school because of those long legs you have and that height that you have. But I wish I had a bit of that height, to be able to serve from a higher trajectory and get a few free points.
So you've announced your retirement this year, but 2020 has taken all of us by surprise. Will you change your mind, especially since the Tokyo Olympics have been pushed out by a year?
If all of us knew that COVID-19 was coming around, we'd all take an insurance plan for 2020. But really, I started my one last roar season, my year of retirement in January. And right through that, I went to Australian Open, which is one of my favorite Grand Slams. This was my 30th participation there in a row. And I had a great farewell there. Then I came to the Indian Open and then to Bangalore and had really good farewells. Playing my last tournament in India, I already got to a final, which was fantastic. A lot of people were questioning why you're retiring when you're still getting to finals and things like that. But then I went to Dubai, and one of my favorite tournaments in the year, and I played the Dubai Duty Free, and had a phenomenal farewell there because the Indians from all over the world actually came to Dubai, and the stadium was packed when we played. So I'm really grateful for the farewell I had there. But then straight after Dubai, I played my last so-called Davis Cup match, and I took the world record that I possess for India, which is 45 wins in a row, in doubles. I pushed that up to 46, and the next thing you knew, we all got stuck in a lockdown. So none of us were prepared for this, and literally I've been home for the last 10, 11 weeks, looking after a 75-year-old father who's battling Parkinson's and taking care of him, and at the same time looking after a 14-year-old daughter who's busting at the seams to go out and train and play tennis and do a fitness outdoors. But, keeping both of them happy at 75 and 14 and keeping them amused is not an easy task, but we're making the best of it. I think as far as this time, it's giving me a great time in this lockdown as a precursor to retirement, as to looking at other mediums and other ways, just as we are doing right now, Raisah, to look at the digital medium and reach people and motivate them to go out and tell your story through the internet or through wonderful portals like this, to motivate people and encourage them, to keep inspiring them to be the best they can be. I find that we are definitely going to win this battle against COVID-19. It's just a matter of time. But until the vaccine comes out, or until we get our immune systems to be able to deal with this, it's only a matter of time. And whether it takes 6 months or a year or 18 months, we're going to win that battle as a human race. We're just really that smart as a human race, I believe. And I will evaluate with my team at that time, Raisah. Once the lockdown opens up, once we come back to playing professional sport, once we're allowed to travel, once we're allowed to go into stadiums where 100,000 people are. But I'll reevaluate my retirement towards the end of 2020. I'll reevaluate whether I'm going to come back in the 2021 season and what the motivations are to come back, whether it's playing 100 Grand Slams, where I'm only 4 shy of playing 100 Grand Slam main draws, which is a world record in itself, or whether it is coming back to play 8 Olympics in 2021 in Tokyo. Those are things that my team and myself will evaluate towards the end of the year.
Thank you, Mr. Paes, for such an engaging conversation. Whether it's learning from your partners and rivals, parents, coaches, or reinventing yourself to be a better competitor and person every day, you are truly an inspiration. Getting insight into your emotional, mental, and physical journey to master your craft and, as you put it, find happiness in the lonely hours of becoming a champion is apt advice for every upcoming sports person. Thank you for your time.
Raisah, you're a complete champion. From today, you're my champion. You inspire me a lot as a young Indian woman to go out there and make a difference in your community with strive. And you give people a sense of inspiration that if you and I can be champions, any young kid around the world can be a champion. So thank you for having me. I wish you all the luck in all your endeavors and anything that you do. And just know that Leander is always in your corner. No matter what you need, I'm always a phone call away. God bless.
Thank you.